Welcome to episode 231 of Friars on the Farm. I'm Donavan, and with me is Roy.
How's it going, Donovan?
Well, I'm just sitting out. I'm actually in a hotel room right now. We're having some impromptu home renovations due to a leaky pipe in the wall. So I'm in a hotel room waiting for spring to start.
Man, it sounds like you and half of San Diego's in that thing, like by going with what's on the news.
Yeah, it's well, the storm should be coming here in the next few days, but everyone, I think all Padre fans right now are just kind of like going tip, like do something. Um, and it's getting close to panic time a little bit. I don't, not panic time, but like mildly concerning. I mean, Eric Hicks just came off the board yesterday, and that was a guy you're like, I mean, okay. And all of a sudden we're like, damn, we could have got that guy. Watch him be an
Yeah,
all-star.
and then what was it? Minnesota and the Mariners make a trade, and people were looking at Minnesota like, oh, hey, maybe we can get one of their outfielders. Sounds like that might not be the case. Well, we do have some stuff to talk about though.
Yeah.
So we've got the list of non-roster invitees was announced, and then we have a great interview with Jeremy Sneed, the director of public relations for the San Antonio Missions.
Yeah, he's
So
gonna be
it's not all bad, boring, lame humdrum stuff over here, Friars on the Farm.
no, the minor league stuff is going great. We have tons of stuff, and we have tons of stuff coming up in the future as well. But first, you guys go to Apple, go to Spotify or iHeartRadio, hit the subscribe button, give us a review. Also, follow us on X, Threads, on Instagram. We're now on YouTube. Search Friars on the Farm. We're there. Subscribe, please. I'll be posting this video. I'll be posting all the interviews we've done. I posted all the interviews we've done in the off season. Any interviews we do in the future, any games that I go to and we post and I take video, in the interviews I do up in Lake Elsinore. We'll be posting that on the YouTube channel. The opening song is Thrills by Video in the Trees. They're friends of ours and they're really fun. If you get a chance, you want to go see them live, February 23rd at the Template in Ocean Beach. If not, go to Spotify, Vito and the Trees. And yeah, we're ready to go. Let's talk to Jeremy now. Yeah.
Thought we were going to talk about the non-roster invitees before kicking
Uh,
it to Jeremy.
Fuck me. Okay. Housekeeping part 2. 3, 2,
Housekeeping.
1. But first, guys, go to Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, hit the subscribe button, give us a review on Apple. You can also follow us on X, on Instagram, on Threads. We now have a YouTube channel. I have posted all our off-season interviews there. Any interviews that we have in the future, we'll be posting on there. Any video I take from games that I go to in the Storm, I'll be posting on the YouTube channel. We also have new opening music. That was Thrills by Video in the Trees. They're friends of ours, and they're really fantastic. Check them out on Spotify. If you want to catch them live February 23rd at the Template in Ocean Beach. But let's get on with it. We have some really exciting, like I'm stoked for these non-roster invitees.
Yeah, so the Padres announced their non-roster invitee list. A lot of people that we expected to see, and a few surprise names on here. So I'll just run through the whole list, and we can kind of react after each group. So right-handed pitchers, there are 12 of them: Lake Bacher, Ryan Bergert, Drew Carlton, Giovanni Cruz, Matt Festa, Nick Hernandez, Kevin Kopps, Moises Lugo, Adam Mazur, Tommy Nance, Drew Thorpe, and Nolan Watson. Who sticks out to you there?
Well, our guys. Well, Lake Bacher might have a really good chance to crack the bullpen. A long time Padre. He's one of those guys. I think he was drafted like the 13th round and just stuck with it and got better. Had a really good season last year, and has a really good chance of cracking the bullpen. Ryan Bergert, a lot of the guys we followed this last year, Ryan Bergert and Adam Mazur, getting big league invites. And, this isn't to say that they're going to be making the squad out of spring training, but what it's going to do is going to get eyes on those guys in front of the whole major league staff and get those guys used to being around other major leaguers and getting major league instruction. Obviously the Drew Thorpe, I think, also sticks out. Just traded it here from, with the Soto trade. Who sticks out to you?
Well, so no, absolutely. So I wanted to point out that actually a few of these names might sound new, if people have been paying real close attention, because the Padres actually signed 4 righty relievers to minor league contracts just in the last week or so. So Bacher and Hernandez were both minor league free agents after the end of the season. They
Yeah.
were both brought back just this last week, and Nick Hernandez probably sounds familiar because he made his major league debut last year. So great story for him. Glad to see him back to get another chance. And then Matt Festa, he was a reliever in the Mariners organization, and he's made big league time in four years, 2018, 19, and then 22 and 23. He's got 89 games of major league experience under his belt. So he's somebody definitely to watch. So the next list here, left-handed pitchers: Daniel Camarena, Ryan Carpenter, Austin Krob, Javian Sandridge, and Robby Snelling. I mean, that's a really solid group right there.
Yeah, absolutely. But go back to the right-handers real quick. Kevin Kopps. Kevin Kopps, a couple of years ago when he was drafted, they were like, "Oh, he'll be in the bullpen this year." He struggled in his first year. Had a much better year last year with improvements in command. It's going to be interesting to see where he is come spring training, and how far he has gone in the offseason to maybe even cracking the roster. Maybe not out of spring training, but certainly during the season. To go back to the lefties, I mean, Slamarena, I think he's probably going to be a coach at some time, and he'll probably be a coach in our system because he just keeps coming back. I mean, he pitched in Double-A. The year before that, he was in El Paso. Last year, almost pitched exclusively into in San Antonio. Austin Krob, I thought was a little bit of a surprise, as well as he did, and we love him. He's a friend of the podcast. I was surprised to see him make it, but I'm stoked. Like, he's another guy that is starting now, but might be well suited more into the bullpen. And then, of course, Robby Snelling. He's just going to be Robby Snelling for sure.
Oh yeah, and then Javian Sandridge, he's the lefty that they picked up from the Cubs as a minor league free agent signing early on in the offseason. Sounds like a really electric guy if they can just figure out how to find his command.
Yeah,
And then the infielders. I was happy to see this first name, Marcos Castanon, and then Mason McCoy, Jackson Merrill, Nate Mondu, Graham Pauley, and Tyler Wade. So a lot of versatility there, but happy to see our guy Castanon get called
yeah.
up. I wasn't sure if he was going to be part of big league spring training this year, so I'm happy for him.
Absolutely. Well, also you got Tirso Ornelas, Calvin Mitchell, Oscar Mercado, Robert Perez Jr., Tirso Ornelas. I think this is almost a put up or shut up year for him, to make the big league roster and make something of himself, really. With Castanon and Jackson Merrill, obviously he's going to more than likely make his major league debut. He was there last year as well as a major league invite. I think this year is much more show us what you got. And I think he's going to come into camp ready to fight for a position. Certainly, Graham Pauley and Jakob Marsee, they're the future as well. To see how they hold up in a major league camp. These guys are going to get, they're going to get shots against major league pitching. They're not going to come in the fifth and sixth inning, seeing Double-A high, just kind of some random pitcher. These guys are going to see some major league pitching for sure.
So we've had candid conversations with Marcos, and he seems so relaxed. But when you see him on the field, he's locked in all the time. He's really a gamer, plays wherever they want him to play, and he's
Yeah.
always ready. So I think he's going to impress some people there. And then we skipped over the catchers, all familiar names: Kevin Plawecki, Ethan Salas, and Chandler Siegel. I think that's an interesting mix of, you got the veteran with Plawecki, who was with the Mets for all those years. He was here with El Paso at the end of last year. Chandler Siegel has been in the Padres organization for a handful of years now, friend of the podcast, got his cup of coffee last year. I'm glad to see him back. Maybe he'll get another serving. And then obviously Ethan Salas, that's been really the big news about all this. People are, I don't know, surprised to see that he's getting the major league spring training invite. But just to see a 17-year-old kid show up in spring training, like, he's not like pulled up, like the minor leaguers, they pull up some guys every day to play a game. No, he's going to be there the first day
Yeah.
working just like everybody else. So I'm really curious to hear how he mixes in, how everybody kind of reads his maturity and his preparation and all of that stuff, because that's, everybody says it's just off the charts.
Yeah, I think he's really going to turn heads with and surrounding him with Kevin Pilecki and Chandler Siga, who's been in the system for a while. He's going to do nothing but soak up that information. I think for him, it's going to be a big chance to take a big step forward and to, for the organization to really see where he is. They keep talking about him maybe making his debut I don't think this year, certainly might make it in 25, but he is in an advanced, they have him at a lightning pace. And it'll be interesting to see once he breaks camp, where he goes. Is he going to go down to high A or is he going to stay up in double A? It's going to be very interesting, but all these guys are going to get major league at bats against major league pitching, and it's going to be fun to watch, and instead of having to wait to the 4th, 5th, 6th inning, even later to see some of these guys that we've had to in the past, we're going to be seeing them in the opening day lineup, not opening day lineup, but in the lineup in spring training. So it's going to be really fun.
I thought it was interesting. So a lot of the minor league teams are starting to sell their single game tickets. And so the Storm, they just had something up today hyping it. And right in the middle of it was a picture of Ethan Salas. And I thought to myself, I don't know if Storm fans can expect to see Ethan Salas much, if at all, next year. He's probably starting up at a higher level than Lake Elsinore. Unfortunate for us Southern Californians, but good for him. So there was one last point of news. So I mentioned that the Padres signed Bacher, Festa, and Hernandez. They also signed Josh Robertson to a minor league contract. They assigned him to El Paso. He was drafted by Miami in 2017, traded to Tampa Bay in 2022, traded to Chicago in 23, the Cubs. But per Fangraphs, this was kind of a funny quote. He has an upper 90s fastball, an upper 80s slider, and very little idea where either is going. He's walked 13 to 15% of opposing hitters each of the last 3 years, but certainly looks the part of a good big lead reliever from both athletically and from a stuff standpoint. So yeah, one of these projects that if they can figure out how to rein in that control just a little bit, somebody that might pop.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing wrong with being effectively wild. I think there's a podcast about that. It keeps people guessing, keeps you on your toes, and if he can, maybe throw a couple wild ones and then get a strike in there, he can probably get some punch outs. I don't know. Now, but seriously,
right, we're continuing our broadcaster front office series here as we take our trip through the minor league system. Next, we've got Jeremy Sneed, Director of Public Relations for the San Antonio Missions. I didn't really know what to expect with that title, Director of Public Relations, but then once we started asking him about it, it's like I forget that when you work in the minors, you just wear every hat that's on the table. Like whatever needs to get done, you pick it up and you run with it. So talking to him, he's like, yeah, I do interviews and I coordinate this and I write that up and I do this and I'm down on the field and I'm up in the stands, and he's just all over the place. Kind of reminds me of what Dominic Lorenz was doing for the Storm a couple years ago.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when you're in minor league baseball, you may have a title, but that doesn't mean you're sitting in the office. He's pulling tarps. He's everywhere. And that's kind of the fun thing about minor league baseball is that you have your title of what you actually do, but during game time, during the season, you're doing all kinds of things because it's just all hands on deck all the time. And I think that kind of makes it fun. Being in minor league baseball, because you do get to learn a lot of everything. So you get your hands in a lot of cookie jars. And it's never a boring day. And certainly when the game starts, it's just whatever it takes to have the fan experience and the players be happy, is what it is. And I really like talking to Jeremy. It was a really great conversation. He knows a lot about the organization. He's going very in depth with several of the guys that we talked about. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this interview. Hey, we're joined here with Jeremy Sneed, the Director of Public Relations for the San Antonio Missions. Jeremy, first time your Friars on the Farm debut.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas. On a perfect rainy evening in wonderful San Antonio.
Well, it rained like the Dickens last night here in San Diego, and I don't know if you saw anything on Twitter or on the national news, but our city's not built for more than a quarter inch of rain. And we got 3 in some areas, and it was gnarly. It was really bad. Like I live in the part of the city where it floods out a lot in Mission Valley, and I had to I couldn't get across, still couldn't get across because it's just flooding through the San Diego River, and it's been I think they declared a national emergency or a citywide emergency. It was so bad.
Bust out the boat and the paddles.
You'll see them, paddleboarding is what they do here.
Yeah. Jeez.
I saw somebody had a dog. They had a paddleboard, and the dog was standing on the paddleboard as they're like wading through the water to get the dog out of there.
And you guys just got done with the cold snap, yeah?
Oh yeah, that was loads of fun. With it being about I think the lowest it got was like 15 or 16 degrees. And surprisingly enough, I really don't have much like cold weather gear. From all the years I lived in Illinois, I don't know if I left it behind or what, but like the coldest like thing I have is like an Under Armour sweater, and like so trying to stay warm. That's why we grow this out in the wintertime, just to keep me warm.
Well, that kind of leads me to my first question. You're from Chicago, so you must be used to the cold, but apparently not.
Somewhat. I'm a softie now. I've lived in the South long enough now, since 2019, really, between San Antonio and Florida, that when it dips below like 60, that's when I start getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, that blood gets thin real quick.
Yeah, right. Bust out the beanie when it's 65 degrees out. Well, and I have no shame about it.
So let's dive into your background. You're from Illinois. You went to SIU, so you're a Saluki, right?
Go Dogs, baby.
But then how did you wind up in Tampa Bay? You were doing play-by-play down there, huh?
Yeah. So I didn't take the conventional route. I talk about this a lot with people, like either that I meet in the industry or, interns or whoever. Like it's crazy the different routes you can take in baseball, right? Like, so my original dream and passion was to be a broadcaster. Growing up in the Chicago suburbs, we had, Hawk Harrelson, who love him or hate him. That was my guy. Hawk Harrelson, Pat Foley with the Blackhawks. Like, so I was surrounded by a lot of big name, broadcasters. And so that was something I wanted to do. Once I figured out that being a professional athlete wasn't going to be the career path. So went to Southern Illinois. It was the only school I visited, only school I applied to. Did radio, television, minored in journalism. Was able to do a lot of play-by-play, do a lot of TV stuff. I was working full-time at a radio station by the time that I graduated. And once I lost that radio job, then I was like, okay, time to, figure out how to work in baseball. That's what I'm like ultimately passionate about. Did some digging at the time, didn't even know who the San Antonio Missions were. As big a baseball fan as I was, it's hard to know who every 200 minor league teams are at that time. So I was like, I've never been to Texas. They're AA. I was like, all right. And they were looking for a media relations intern. Didn't really know much about it at the time, but did some digging, thought I could do it, and got fortunate enough to get hired. My boss kind of had a similar background to me, so he kind of trusted that I'd be able to handle everything. And so packed my car, drove down from Illinois after the internship, drove back to Illinois, hit the job boards, got hired as the broadcast intern with the Tampa Bay Rays. Nice. To help out with their radio department, and packed up my car again, drove down to Florida, had a great 3 months down there. And then COVID happens. And so I say I was stuck down there, but I stayed in Florida during the pandemic, just worked random jobs just to get by like most people did. And kept in touch with the Missions because I found out that my boss with the Missions had left and had already taken a job as a police officer in Georgia. So knew they would need a guy, right? And so I kept in touch, said, hey, I'm here in Florida. I'm not tied down to anything. I'll gladly come back if you guys would have me, like if you need me to interview, whatever. But Major League Baseball and minor league baseball, they had no idea what was going on for the 21 season.
That's when the whole media, the whole contract, the labor
contraction.
What am I trying to say? Yeah, it was contraction, but it was that their contract
when they realigned everything. Right. So they were trying to figure all that stuff out. Meanwhile, my apartment lease was ending. I was out of work completely. My parents were in the process of moving to Florida, and finally I was working a job for a couple weeks. Got an email from Dave Gassaway, our GM, said, "Hey, let's have a chat." um, and then he said, "Can you start April 1st? We want you to be the director of PR." They told me at the time that it wasn't full time right away because they didn't know if the season was even gonna,
Right.
be fulfilled. But they said as long as the season goes well, everything, as long as everything happens, you'll be here. And so did that, and here I am. What is it? Three years later, heading into season 4.
Nice.
Okay, so we talk to people that are like general manager or broadcaster or that kind of thing. Um, Director of public relations is a different title
Yeah.
that maybe our listeners aren't familiar with. Can you give us a bit of an idea of just what the scope of your role is?
Yeah, so with the missions, I kind of take on the public relations role and media relations. So I'm handling game notes, I'm handling press requests, press releases, updating the website, posting starting lineups, and dealing with the players, dealing with the coaches, dealing with the umpires,
Wow.
handling mascot appearances, handling donation requests, keeping track of the media guide, making sure that that's published. The last few years, I've been in charge of our game day program that we hand out. Trying to think what else. I schedule press box employees, the game day stringers, the line score operator, speed pitch, pitch clock, all that fun stuff. Um,
It's minor league baseball, so you basically do everything but
right.
play the
Yeah.
game.
Pull tarp when needed, every whatever anyone needs, that's we wear a lot of hats, but that's what
Yeah.
makes it kind of fun, compared to some other jobs that you might have in sports. The fun thing with minor league baseball is you do get to try a little bit of everything.
Let's back up a second though. You grew up in outside of Chicago. You're a South Sider.
That's right.
Ooh,
My dad got converted. My grandma was a diehard Cub fan,
wow.
and my dad was a Cubs fan growing up. But okay, as the story goes, apparently my aunt's boyfriend at the time, my uncle now, was a White Sox fan and would basically bribe my dad by taking him to all the giveaway days at Comiskey, and slowly converted him to be a White Sox fan. And that's
Was he
where
old enough to
that's
go
where
to
we
disc?
stand now.
Was he old enough to go to kill disco night? Or that's a little too early for you, right?
No, that was I think what, 79. Yeah, my like
Yeah.
my dad was around, like he was like 8 or 9 when that happened, but we still look back on that like, man, that's a good thing we missed out on that.
Different.
So I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news. I saw an article come across. Apparently, there's an idea to build a new White Sox stadium in an area called the 78. Have you seen anything
That's
about
right.
that?
Yeah, no, that makes me happy because as long as it keeps them out of Nashville, that's all that I care about right now, cuz the rumors keep going back and forth on them moving to Nashville in 5 years. And if that happens, I've already committed that I'm going to switch sides if the team moves to Nashville, but as long as they stay on the south side, I'm in. But yeah, that area where they're looking at putting the stadium, they're going to kind of try to copy what the Cubs did for years, which is people can be able to just take the train and get right off at the stadium and not have to worry about travel, because that's the toughest part about getting to a White Sox game is just it's in such a weird spot that
Yeah.
that traffic is nuts, and it's similar to what like the Tampa Bay Rays deal with. Is sometimes it's not that the fans don't want to go, it's just that it can be a pain to try to get out there on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night when the games are at 6:05, 7:05.
Yeah. I spent
Well, and
actually about 24 hours in Chicago for a wedding, and
Okay.
and actually caught 6 innings of a White Sox game where they had a nice Abreu giveaway. It
There
was,
you go.
it was pretty
okay,
sweet.
Right.
so Donovan, you've been to enough baseball stadiums.
Yeah.
What was your general honest impression of what do they call it, guaranteed rate field now?
It was pretty It was pretty generic.
Yeah,
You
it's
go out, you
okay.
see you see the Frank Thomas statue, I think, in center field. But it wasn't nothing spectacular, and I wanted to like it. I mean, you could see the skyline in the distance, so that was kind of cool. It's kind of out in the sticks, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Um, there was nothing. It was just a ballpark. There was no cool
yeah.
feature. So if they get a new
Growing
stadium, they got to make it interesting.
Right. Growing up, going to White Sox games were fun because they had the fundamentals area out in left field where they had like batting cages and like a little 40-yard dash area. So like as a kid going to White Sox games, a lot of fun. As an adult now, when I go back to Chicago, I haven't been to a White Sox game in years. When I'm back home in Chicago, I go to Wrigley because like
Wow.
why it's just because it's easier, and most of my friends back home are Cub fans anyway, so it's just easier to easier to do that, and nothing beats sitting in the bleachers out there too for a nice Friday afternoon game in Wrigley.
Yeah, then after the game, you can walk around the block and visit 20 different bars and restaurants and
That's
stuff.
right.
I had the similar impression that Donovan had. I went to a game there, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it was it was a nice, clean, new-ish stadium, but it didn't have any personality.
Yeah.
So this lot that they have now, it's closer to downtown. It's right on the river, and there's train tracks that run like through this property, so they can't turn it into residential development because of the noise. You got freeways all the way around it, which makes it great for transportation. It's like it checks off all of these boxes, and it's this piece of just open land that's been sitting empty for 100 years. So
Right.
I would love to see that happen so that the White Sox could stay in Chicago.
Yeah, no, for sure. And really, like what I've noticed too with the White Sox seems like I feel like the food is good though there too. They have not a lot of different options, there. But like I said, ultimately, I've always liked Wrigley more than U.S. Cellular or Guaranteed Rate, whatever they call it. Um, even as a White Sox fan, I would always look forward to going to Wrigley more. But
Well, when we're done with this, I'm gonna tweet this to all the White Sox, podcast.
yeah,
Like, hey, we did a
You
nice
know, and
segment on the
they're probably going to
We're good.
agree with us.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm gonna get some texts from my cousins who are diehard White Sox fans and call me a traitor, but it's all right. It's all right. I'll take it.
all right. So back to what you do. Do you get involved in the interviews? Are you conducting interviews? Are you like organizing all of that?
Yeah. For the most part, I'm the main media contact with the missions. Except for certain circumstances. Like sometimes it goes over my head, but
Yeah.
most of the time it's directly through me. Even when Fernando Tatis was rehabbing, when Ethan Salas joined us last summer, I was kind of at the focal front of trying to get all that stuff organized, dealing with the players. Whenever somebody asks, if they want to do something. The fortunate thing for me, especially the first couple of years of trying to get acclimated to everything, was that the San Antonio baseball media market isn't as intense as
Right.
other cities are, especially like Corpus and Frisco and even Amarillo a little bit. So even when we have a big name player, there's usually only a handful of requests to do interviews, or simply we usually just do a one big scrum, let everybody
Okay.
get their footage, get their audio, and then usually they call it a day because we pretty much only there's like one sweet spot in the summer when there's no Spurs going on, no Dallas Cowboys going on, and then it's like only us. And that's
Right.
kind of
Right.
like that's like that May to like mid June where it's like, all right, let's focus on the missions, and then Cowboys training camp starts up, and they're like, oh yeah, the missions are playing again.
Okay, so you mentioned Salas, and we've noticed that there hasn't really been much as far as interviews. I don't think he's really had much media availability. I imagine he was kind of a different case because most players, it's like the reporter comes and says, "Hey, I want to talk to this person. I want to talk to that person." It's just a matter of does the player want to talk? But with Salas, I imagine the Padres may have had some special rules because he's so young and they're just
Yeah.
trying to let him get comfortable without all the noise of the media attention.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Salas was his situation was very similar to having like a big time rehabber. Like the same kind of treatment that we gave Fernando, and when we had Lance McCullers play against us, that kind of heightened security and making sure that everything is planned out, was elevated even more with Ethan, with him being 17 years old, with him being the Padres' number one prospect, with the kind of year that he had last year. Mike Daly was with us for a while when Salas was there as kind of his liaison. I got to know Mike pretty well through that time. He said, if there's any media requests, go through me first. He's like, I might even just take the media request instead of having Ethan do it. So just that kind of funnel system of don't, like you said, if it's like Jason Blanchard, if it's Chandler Siegel, those kind of guys, I can just go right to them. Hey, are you free to do this interview? Do you want to do this interview? But with someone like Ethan, it was talk to the Padres first. Let's see if they even want to do it. And then on my end too, it was kind of funneling out the people, because of course people were coming out of the woodwork to say, oh yeah, Ethan's here. I want to talk to him. And then it was kind of up to me to kind of give the Padres, the good candidates and the the should I say not so good candidates of getting access to Ethan, but it's understandable. I mean, the kind of that whirlwind that kid was going through last year is nuts, and so I don't blame him for being a little standoffish or trying to just focus on baseball. I completely get it.
Dude, at 17, I was sneaking behind 300 Hall smoking cigarettes and occasional, hit
Right.
dude.
Right.
We got to know Mike Daly. We had him on the podcast a while back, and solid guy, man. Just really, really easy to talk to. Really friendly. He was really good. He was a really good get as well.
Yeah, no, it was great getting to know him, and really for me, just getting to know anybody in the Padres front office and organization is always something I enjoy.
So let's get into it. You guys have a new ownership group, and
Right.
you had, obviously with the big names with Nolan Ryan and his son. How is that group in? And is there, we talked a little bit before we came on. What is the talk about? Maybe a new stadium, any kind of renovations that they may have? I doubt the renovations, but where are we with that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny how many more eyes were immediately drawn to us once that announcement was made in the end of 22 that Designated Bidders LLC was going to take us over. We went from just being the minor league team that was in San Antonio to pretty much being kind of a big player. Especially with those names involved, and even some of the names that might not stand out to some people, but then when you dig in, I mean, Bruce Hill is a part of the ownership group. He's one of the he does a lot with the San Antonio Spurs. Peter J. Holt, one of the minority owners of the Spurs, he's a part of our ownership group. Hope Andrade, former Secretary of State. Just a lot of big names that might even kind of slip under the radar, but they've been terrific. Under the old ownership, and no fault to them, but they weren't around all that much because they were based out of Colorado. So they came around maybe once or twice during the season, and when they did, it was strictly business. So they we didn't really get a chance to get to know them very well. But under the new ownership, I mean, the core five, the board of directors, they're in town all the time. I mean, Reed was just in the office today, brought his dog with him. So the owners, I mean, they come out to the games all the time. They were able to bring out Manu and David Robinson early on last year. Nolan Ryan came out to opening night. So it's been great just being able to get to know them, and they get to know us, and it's just a lot more personal. And it just nice to have them a part of the family. And of course the new stadium is something that they're trying to work on. This ownership group, they're locally based, which is nice, and a lot of them have infrastructure roots in San Antonio, so that's just something. They have more resources than the other ownership group would have to try to get that new stadium built. So they're trying. The problem is there's just not as much space as everyone seems to think there is. It seems like an easy concept on paper, like, hey, just put a stadium in downtown. And it's like, that'd be great, but it's not that easy. So they're working on it. We have to have a plan in place, either this year or I think it's before the 25 season,
Okay.
to make sure that everything's a go. As far as renovations go, we're doing our best right now to just make sure the stadium's as nice as possible. We added some bars, some 21 and older areas at the stadium. Added some drink rails. We're in the process of extending the foul net because that was part of the guidelines. Put a fresh coat of paint on the stadium last year. We're just trying to do as much as we can to make sure that when people come to the games, they're having a good time and just enjoying the stadium as much as possible. We put in a brand new video board 2 seasons ago. So that's been nice. It's all digital. So that's been awesome. And like I said, just really trying to make sure that until the new stadium comes around, that people can enjoy the Wolf as much as possible.
Yeah, I see that the stadium opened in 1994. So I guess this is the 40th anniversary, 40th, 30th anniversary of baseball at the Wolf, which is neat. That also means that you've kind of maxed out what the actual facility can do. It's not like you can build a whole new, you can't expand really.
Right. And that was because that was one of the options was, you can, and other teams had to do this too, is, you either just refurbish the stadium or do the renovations that are needed. But with us, that's just not really much of an option, especially for the price that it would take to put in all those to fit all those guidelines. And so I think a new stadium is going to be awesome because the people that do support the Missions, I think they're going to really enjoy it. I mean, we see generations of Missions fans, which is kind of cool. People that are bringing their kids out to the stadium now who say that when I was a kid, I chased the puffy taco, and now my son gets to chase the puffy taco, and it's so that part's kind of cool.
Dude, puppy taco rules. I never get to like I'm 54 years old and I still like watching him having the kid run around and he beats the kid till he gets around to third base and then he falls down and the kid steps on him and goes like this and then runs off like puppy taco. And there was a story a couple years back how wasn't that costume like stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere or like didn't you guys
sort of there was sort of, yeah. I mean,
or as a legend of Puffy Taco.
Well, to my understanding, a couple of years ago, we Puffy Taco was on a little bit of a hiatus, post COVID. But we were happy to have him back. And I know the fans are happy to have him back, and Bala Peno and Mama Peno. It's a whole little family there at the Wolf.
Nice. All right. So you guys had a big year this year. There's a new coaching staff. You guys went deep in the playoffs. You had this crazy stream of top prospects come flowing up through your clubhouse. Can you kind of just take us through what this whole season was like?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me personally, last year was awesome because, with not having a PR background, and then when I was hired in 21, I didn't really have, I had to cram an entire off season's worth of work into pretty much a month, with the season starting a month after I was hired. So the first year was really tough for me. The second, the 22 season was a lot of trying to, like polish my skills a little bit. And then last year was the first year that I really felt ready to go, comfortable, like, let's go. And sure enough, like Luke Montz was amazing. The entire coaching staff, nothing against the other coaching staffs that we had. Wellman's amazing, but they were completely two different people. Between Wellman and Luke, but Luke was terrific. The entire coaching staff, and then all the players too. I mean, they were super easy people to work with. And then yeah, I mean, selfishly as a baseball fan, it was fun to see all these top prospects coming in, and we were able to clinch the playoffs again in the first half, like we did in 22, which is kind of nice to know that already. Throughout the second half of the season that we have playoffs to look forward to. Of course, we wish things would have ended a little bit differently than losing to Amarillo, but But really, I mean, seeing Jackson Merrill come through, seeing Robby Snelling, seeing Ethan Salas make it through, the rise of Ripken Reyes, just a lot of that stuff was pretty cool.
Yeah, huge. God, I lost in thought. I had so many more questions. We can do a whole podcast episode on Welly, on what some of the stories I've heard about him are just, God, what a legend, what a great guy. And
Isn't he great?
well, it's just one of those guys from looking outside, like you need that guy in AA to like this. That ain't gonna work, son. That ain't gonna work, son. That's not gonna get it done. Like you need to get it done. And just tell it like it is. But also I can see where someone like Luke Montz, which once again, this is just my perception. It just folksy, really good to know, like someone that you can really trust in kind of a different way than like the experience that you have with a Wellman. That's just kind of my perception, but I always try to judge how the coach would be in every level and how that kind of helps the player develop.
Yeah, and Luke having been there too, getting a couple cups of coffee in the big leagues, playing in the, for about 13, 14 years in major and minor league baseball. And he's still relatively young too.
Yeah.
I think he was only like 45 maybe. Jeff Andrews, I feel like almost served as kind of that Wellman type though, with him being around for a lot longer, having seen a lot more. It seemed like their dynamic was pretty good, of Luke being kind of more laid back and relaxed, and Jeff Andrews having been kind of the wily vet of the coaching staff.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Raul Padron. I know he graduated up to AAA this last year, but we've talked to him a few times. We're the nicest guys around. But I want to ask you about Pat O'Sullivan. He was just promoted up to the Padres. He's going to be one of the assistant hitting coaches, I think. What can you – so Pat O'Sullivan was in San Antonio for, 4 or 5 years now, right?
Well, he was with – last year was his first year with us.
Okay, 6 years with the Padres. There we go.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was in the organization. Everybody on our staff last year was new to the missions, to my understanding, except for Felipe Blanco had played for us, and then as a coach, it was his first time. But no, Pat was amazing. And then when him being from Chicago too, if I walked around wearing like a Blackhawks shirt or like a Bears shirt, he would immediately just. Felt like he wanted. It seemed like he wanted to just embrace me immediately. Or the one day, I was wearing a Blackhawks shirt, just walking around the front office, didn't think anything of it, and he was just like, "Go Hawks!" I'm like, "All right." So Pat was awesome, especially like whenever things were going well. He was always just not. It didn't seem to me like he was the most like talkative coach ever, and maybe things were different. Obviously, I'm not there all the time, but it just seemed like he was always a nice spirit, just always just kind of that rah kind of guy. But I'm happy for him. That was really cool to see that, especially with him just being here last year and getting that promotion.
Absolutely. So let's get into a couple of the players, if you don't mind. Ryan Bergert is a name I think listeners need to know more about. He was consistent all year. Every time I saw his starts, he was nailing it down. He was also chosen as the organization's MLB pipeline to have a breakout 24 season. How did you see his season go?
Yeah, I mean, Bergert was one of those guys where I feel like he's one of those guys where command kind of overpowers like the stuff. Not that he doesn't have good pitches or anything, but I feel like sometimes having better command can be just as effective as the stuff you have. He's not going to light it up. He's not going to light the radar gun up, but he's going to attack the strike zone and keep the hitters off balance. He's got a nice, easy rotation and motion that's repeatable. And it just seemed like whenever he got in a groove, it was just hard to hit him. And I think that's sometimes what you see in the big leagues too. The guys that aren't lighting up the radar gun, they just find that groove, and then it's impossible to touch him. And he had that stretch where he had, I think, 3 straight quality starts for us, and the end of August, he had 3 straight quality starts, and I'm happy for him too. And I think a 24 season with the pitching staff that we might have, I think more reps for him for sure will be good. And And him being teammates with Jackson Wolf in college probably helps a little bit too. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Well, that
Yeah,
kind of
so
brings us.
Jackson Wolf, yeah, he's a friend of the podcast. We talked to him and we had a great interview with him, and we had so much fun just following his story. We would howl every time we'd bring his name up. So we were so excited. We got the call up, and then our hearts were broken a little bit to see him traded away to Pittsburgh, where he's going to go on to better opportunities, I'm sure. But what a season Jackson Wolf had for you guys before he left, before he got called up and left. So how was it covering him?
Yeah, it isn't Jackson Wolf like the nicest guy in the world too?
Oh yeah, such a good guy.
Yeah.
He was one of the easiest players in the 3 years that I've been in my role with the Missions. He's probably one of the easiest players that I've had to deal with media, and especially with him being somewhat of a higher prospect. You know, he was never like a top 10 guy or anything, but he was still a big enough name where I tried to get him out there as much as possible, and he was terrific, whether it was media day, doing a scrum, doing MLB stuff, whatever whatever I needed or whatever anybody needed, he was always good. And Jackson Wolf, I think, is similar to Ryan Bergert too, where he's not gonna light up the radar gun or anything, but he's got that funky arm slot, and there's a lot of body parts moving around, and I can see him having a good career. Even he reminds me of like an old school kind of pitcher, you know, like the ones that are going to eat up innings, you know, keep you around a 3 to 4 ERA, you know, hopefully lower than that. But I think he's just going to be one of those guys that just eats up innings and is going to be around for a while. And with Pittsburgh too, it's sometimes like with Jack Sawinski too, you know, sometimes you just need a new organization where you're going to have room to thrive.
It's been fun watching him too. We awesome, very old friend of the podcast. And when he got called up, we texted him, dude, welcome aboard. The 3 home run game. We're like, what the hell? Come on, man.
Yeah. He had the walk off on Father's Day, I think, too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Adam Mazur is another guy that doesn't necessarily throw hard, but he's got a better strikeout rate than Ryan Bergert. He also had a pretty good year. What'd you see out of him?
Yeah, I think with Mazur, the fact that he didn't play after he was drafted was probably what helped. I think a little bit, you know, give him a little bit of a breather, and the fact that he started in Fort Wayne, I think was good. You know, to kind of work your way up a little bit. I wonder a little bit if maybe if the transition from being a starter and then they tried him in the bullpen a little bit and then they brought him back to the rotation. I wonder if that maybe factored a little bit into some of his struggles that he had, but he's another guy, you know, just a nice motion, very repeatable, and seems like a gamer too, you know, like just to kind of grind down and get some good at bats, and he's a guy I think, like, you know, once he gets more out there, you know, the 24 season, I think with him too is going to be crucial to get to, you know, hopefully he can start with us. Same with Ryan. Hopefully they can start with us, put together, you know, whatever it is, 10, 12 starts. Hopefully they go well. And then, you know, maybe they can be at Petco before the season ends. Right. That's the hope. Right.
No, Jairo Uriarte is in that same kind of group, and they did the same thing with him. We're starting, and then they put him in the bullpen for a little bit, and then he went back to starting, but he didn't seem to miss a beat when they put him back in the rotation.
Yeah, Jairo is definitely the difference maker out of all of those players that we've talked about, because putting him in the in the bullpen allows him to potentially throw upwards of 99, 100 miles an hour. And then he's got a nasty changeup, nasty breaking ball. So he's someone where I think if they did want to transition him to a bullpen piece, whether it's a middle reliever, or whether it's, you know, one of those opener kind of deals, I don't see that being a bad idea. I mean, obviously you want him to be a workhorse starter, you know, but with some of the bullpen needs that the Padres might have, with some of the guys that they've brought in, I could see him potentially being, you know, a multi-inning guy to try to help things out for the Padres. But watching him and especially doing research on him for the last couple of years and seeing his numbers, he was a guy I really didn't think was going to make it to San Antonio, just based on, and that's where, like, sometimes the stats don't show everything, but you know, some of his numbers that he had put up in his career weren't all inspiring. But then he really found things in Fort Wayne, and then was really dominant for us at different times, down the stretch.
Yeah, yeah. Another friend of the podcast as well. We get him down there in A-ball. We get everyone we can. Jared Collar is another guy who's quietly, he's had a breakout season. Like I said, I watch just about every game, several innings of just about every game, the whole season. And every time we're like, okay, Collar, all right, 4 or 5 innings, 4 hits and maybe 1 run, and just, but you don't see him on the prospect list. You don't see him, hyped up as much as your Snelling or other guys like that.
Yeah, Jared kind of flew under the radar. It seemed like even as far as getting out of Rutgers, he didn't get drafted. Signed a minor league deal, and then yeah, he's just a gamer too. And Jared's kind of funny because he's really not the most outgoing person in the world. But there was this weird social media thing that we had where Jared got called up before Nathan Martorella did. And there was a video that Fort Wayne had done with the players calling out who they thought had the worst fashion. And he had called out Jared Kolar. And so before Nathan even got to us in San Antonio, we had already been kind of razzing him on social media, trying to send him pictures of Jared saying, do you approve this fit? Like, because Jared's not the most outgoing person. He's not the flashiest dresser. So that was kind of fun, but yeah, no, Jared's another one of those guys I can see just being another workhorse starter. He didn't strike out a lot of guys when he played for us. I imagine he's going to start with us again in AA, is what I would imagine. But the tricky thing's going to be, with a guy like him, a guy like Adam, is we're going to have paper at least, we should have a pretty stacked rotation. And so I don't know where some of these guys are going to fit in. If it's going to be a 5-6 man rotation, if these guys are going to be bullpen guys or what, because I wonder if Jared might be a transitional bullpen guy, maybe, or at least in the time being, while, you have guys like Snelling, Drew Thorpe, Ryan Bergert, that could potentially be the frontline starters on the team.
Boy, Snelling sure showed up as advertised, huh?
A little bit. Yeah. I think he made the right choice in not playing football. I think that's for sure.
I'd say so. So we talked to him. We were both surprised by just how just like calm and mature and kind of confident in himself that he is at his age. With the success that he had in low A and then high A and then moving up to AA, it seems like he just kind of has the process, the game day kind of atmosphere, the attitude that he brings, success, he just kept on rolling when he got to AA.
Yeah, it seems like some guys just get it, right? Like I feel like Jackson Wolf just gets it. He understands talking to media, building a brand, stuff like that, and then going out there and pitching 7 dominant innings. I feel like Robby Snelling is the exact same guy. I was pleasantly surprised at how great he was to talk to, how great he was with media. At 19 years old, it was crazy to me. And then he's an imposing guy too. He's especially on the mound. He's a big guy to be facing. And but yeah, seeing the stuff he was able to do, and even that dominating start. I think he was in Amarillo.
5 innings,
I think, when he
no hit.
Yeah, when he and Amarillo is not an easy park to. Right. A lot of the parks in the Texas League are not easy to pitch in. We're pretty much the only ones that benefit from having a pitcher friendly ballpark. So for him at that age, in just his second or third AA start, to put a stat line like that together was crazy. And I think he's going to be an exciting player, to see in spring, hopefully, and then to see what he can do in those first couple months with us here in San Antonio. I'm betting that he's going to be back. I don't know that for sure. Obviously, it's all speculation, but it'd be nice to have him starting that opening weekend in Amarillo.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go. You guys, it's going to be stacked. What are they going to do? You're not going to bring some of those guys like Iriarte or even Bergert. They're not going to start in high A. And
right.
Maybe not. And I don't know. I think sometimes the Padres are very smart when they don't put guys in the Pacific Coast League. You saw what happened to guys like Mackenzie Gore, where it's just the Pacific Coast League is like pitching on the moon. And that
Yeah,
that mixture
it can be tough.
of 4A guys that just know how to hit, and ballparks that are just like you just hit the ball and you hit it 500 feet. Um,
Right.
and it is going to be absolutely incredible to see that rotation. And I'm going to have to carve up some special time to just watch most of those games. I'll put
That's right.
so let's get on some of the position players. And we do, once again, Jeremy, we really appreciate taking the time to talk to us. We
Yeah,
have
of
a
course.
bunch of the position guys that we want to talk about. Most of them are all friends of the podcast.
Yeah.
Most of them are friends of the podcast, starting with, Jackson Merrill. As a natural leader, I seen him in Lake Elsinore, watching him perform in Fort Wayne. Going up to Double A is a little bit different. Did he embrace the role as a leader on the Double A team, and did the team kind of embrace him?
Yeah, it seemed like it. I mean, when he came up, we kind of had the luxury of having Chandler Siegel hanging around. We had Ripken Reyes that had been in the system for a little bit, and being a coach is something that he wants to do in the future. So he was kind of one of those leaders as well. But Jackson was a nice spark of energy for sure. When we got him, I think it was the same time that we got Castanon and I think Kolar, and I'm trying to remember who else from Fort Wayne, but it was a big group of them that came up from Fort Wayne. I think Valenzuela came up at the same time, so I think part of that was helpful for him, that it wasn't just him coming up to a brand new team, but he at least had some of his buddies hanging around. But yeah, seeing him on the field was definitely something new for me. I hadn't seen someone like him since probably CJ Abrams, in 21. Just how smooth he is, how he makes everything look so easy, and then smooth power stroke, and then his energy too. Legging out a triple or hitting an RBI, just anything like that. He was always ready to hype people up, and then for me and our social media manager, he was always great just to have around. He was a funny guy, just naturally a nice dude, and whether he starts back with us in Double A, hopefully he's in AAA, knocking on the door of the big leagues. But I think as long as he stays healthy, that was the biggest problem for him the first couple of years was battling injuries, and you saw it last year what he was able to do in a relatively full season, and it'll just be interesting to see what the Padres decide to do with him, because I mean they were working on him playing first base a little bit, second base, playing the outfield a little bit. It'll be interesting to see where they find room for him.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
him.
what stood out to me,
I saw him in the outfield. I thought he looked really good in the outfield. Hell, I watched the one game I saw him play first base. I'm like, it's kind of a natural there. Like, I mean, and that's
Yeah.
what you want your shortstop to be, like the best athlete to play all over the ballpark. And for my thinking, like, if he's going to break, barring an injury, if he's going to break through in the major league roster, he's going to have to do outfield. He's going to, unless there's trades where there's room
Right.
in the infield, like he's more than likely going to be put into the outfield. And that's not a bad thing. Like, he's got the wheels. He can learn
Right.
how to make the routes, and all that stuff is comes easily with an athlete like that. We're
Right.
really stoked for him, and we're really close with his mom and his dad too. They're really nice people.
Yeah,
we
they
just
were.
saw a shortstop make a pretty good transition to right field last year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
So you're going to say about his family?
Oh yeah, they came out to a lot of games when he was there, and yeah, they were real nice people to deal with too. Always liked having them around, and whenever the Reyes family came out too, Ripken's family came out quite often, and they were always nice supporters of us.
I've
Yeah,
heard
that's
nothing
one
but
thing about minor league baseball, that you go out to the park and you can, I mean, not that you go out looking for people, but you never know who you're going to run into. And there's a lot more just accessibility. People are open, and like, because I ran into we were talking about Jack Sawinski. I ran into his family at Lake Elsinore, and now we follow each other on Facebook, and we're friends. It's great.
Yeah.
You
All
keep
right,
bringing up
so
Ripken Reyes real quick.
yeah,
He's a guy that I missed in Lake Elsinore. He wasn't there very long, and I didn't get a chance to interview him. But the coaches talked about him, about his
Yeah.
leadership, and like a hardball, almost like a Ty Wigginton kind of guy. It's like you call that kid hardball because he's dirty all the time and he plays hard.
Yeah, Ripken is a guy. I feel like he's playing in the wrong decade, because I feel like I feel like if he was playing in the 90s, if he was playing in the early 2000s,
Right.
he'd be a starter somewhere batting leadoff or batting ninth. Just he'd be an everyday player, I think, if it was any time pre 2010, because he's a switch hitter. He doesn't strike out very much from either side, puts the ball in play. He's an aggressive base runner, but he knows what he's doing. He's not afraid to get on base. He's a career on base of like 420 something. He's not afraid. He crowds the plate. Set the minor league hit by pitch record last year, which was nuts. Not as glorified of a record as I thought. I was trying to hype that up to people. Like, hey, he's on the verge of breaking a record.
Is it in the 50s?
He ended up at 49, I believe, because
Okay.
Carlos Quentin had the record. It was like he had like 47, I think.
Okay, so how does he get hit by because Carlos Quentin would stand on top of home plate. Like his elbow was in the middle of the strike zone. I can't imagine that Ripken Reyes is like that.
No, he's right on there. Yeah, from both sides. He stands right on there, and he doesn't move if that ball's coming in.
And I saw him steal a ton of bags last year. Like he stole a lot.
I don't know if he just had the natural green light or what, but he was. I mean, there were times when we were up in the press box looking at the leads he was taking, and we were hands on our face, like, "Oh my goodness! Like, are they gonna do something?" But I think with all the pickoff restrictions and the bigger bases and stuff like that, I think he just had the green light to go whenever he wanted. And sure enough, he put together a quiet breakout year. I mean, because he didn't have the power numbers. He wasn't like that, but to have that on base percentage for a guy like of his size and what he does, I'm hoping the Padres give him a shot at least at some point. Whether it's the Chandler Siegel treatment of, hey, you've been with the organization long enough, we like you. Here's a cup of coffee, or in the other sense, hopefully he plays well enough. That they can find use for him somewhere.
The way you were describing everything that he does, it sounds a lot like Matthew Batten. And he was somebody that we followed for the last few years. And we're like, this guy he does everything well. He plays all over the place, shortstop, first base, left field, whatever you need. And it sounds like Ripken's kind of cut from the same cloth.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when he first came to play for us in 2022, they moved him to the outfield, and he had it seemed like he had never played the outfield before, at least according to the stats and everything. But then he led our team in outfield assists for being a converted infielder. And his throws were just always perfect, just right on the money. And yeah, he played him at first base a couple times. He played third. He played second. Played short. Bats in almost every spot. He bought our front office donuts a couple times because he said he wanted to support us. Like, he is just all around great dude. Whenever we did stuff with little leagues, he was always volunteering to help out in the community whenever needed. Just a really good dude.
Nice.
Named after, if you're gonna be named after the Iron Man, you better be a good dude.
Right.
All right, so earlier you mentioned Castanon and Valenzuela, and those guys come up. You had another wave come up later in the season. Martorella, Pauley, and Marsee. Those three guys seem to travel in a pack. And they showed up and just did damage there. How fun was that?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And like I said, as a diehard baseball fan myself, one of the fun things is seeing everybody come through and try to make an impact. And all three of them really made impacts in kind of different ways. Graham Pauley was definitely the more impactful of the three with his power and with playing multiple positions and being that top of the lineup guy who's knocking down the door of cracking the big league team, this year. Martorella was kind of more the leader, your natural first baseman, get on base. I think his power is going to come in San Antonio because that's part of the issue with where we play is that it's not hitter friendly. So I think some of the balls that he's used to seeing fly out are fly balls in San Antonio. So I think he'll have a nice bounce back year. And then Jakob Marsee, I mean, he kind of was right in the middle, not as impactful as Pauley, but definitely was doing his thing, getting on base at the top of the order. And then seeing what he did in Arizona, now seeing his name being floated around as a potential, Padres bench option this year is and they're all really nice dudes, especially, like Graham was awesome. Nathan was awesome. Jakob, they like all the guys that came up last year, and not that any of the players are ever like, jerks or anything, but
Right.
some guys are just more friendly than others or more easygoing than others, and naturally. And but all those guys, that first wave with Merrill and Castanon, the second wave with Martorella and Pauley and those guys, they were all just super awesome to be around. And whether they stay with us again in Double A, or if they make it up to Triple A, or hopefully the bigs, we're happy for them regardless.
Did you see it reflected in the stands that the team was doing well and you got these young, exciting guys? Did you feel like there were more people coming out to the ballpark late in the summer?
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely helped. I mean, the interesting thing about like where we're at is, they wins and losses don't seem to necessarily matter all the time. Just because this isn't San Antonio's not a super diehard baseball city. But when the fans do come out and the team is doing well, they get into it, especially when we have our flying chocolate nights, whenever we have a
Yeah.
nice promotion. When we fill the Wolf, they really do get into it. And then you add players like Castanon, who's a spark plug. When you add Merrill, when you add Pauley, when you add those guys on top of it, hitting doubles, hitting homers, making things fun. That atmosphere at the Wolf can be pretty top notch.
Dude, I love the fly. So, right, the first year you guys had the flying chanclas, we had Comic Con here, and
Okay.
someone went as with the flying he went as the flying chancla, and I was like, "Holy cow, that's so rad." Um,
Yeah.
you
You guys
mentioned
do on-field promotions with the? Do you guys do like a chocolate toss or anything like that?
right?
Well, we have our Mama Peno mascot, who serves as like the representative of the Flying Chanclas, and so every Thursday home game we incorporate her into everything with the mascots. So she's always throwing chanclas at people and different stuff like that. We did 2 years ago. I actually have them right here actually, but we did a Flying Chancla giveaway 2 years ago to try to,
Oh, those are
try to
nice.
yeah, the quality of them isn't terrible.
So for the people on the
for a
audio
giveaway
feed,
item.
this is an actual pair of flip flops you could wear.
That's right.
Foam sole with the plastic. I guess you call that the thong, the thing that goes between your
Yeah.
toes.
A little hard rubber, a little hard rubber.
Yeah, but wear it down to the beach, wear it in the shower.
Yeah, these things took for like we went through hell and back to get these things delivered. They were almost the cursed giveaway item because we had to change the promotional date like 3 times
Oh wow.
uh, just to finally get these things out. And then I think the one day we were supposed to give them out was when one of the games got canceled because of COVID, and so they so we were supposed to release these in like May of 22, and then it turned out being like August was when we finally gave them out.
Okay, so
They were
those look
just
like functional chanclas that you can wear, but how well do they fly?
Oh, they fly pretty good. Yeah, no. Thankfully, I haven't had to witness it myself, but that was one of the first things we did in the office when these things came in. That's for sure. Was test out their flying abilities.
Dude, the
I mean, because
chocolate toss, right?
we mentioned the Death to Disco night in Chicago, and that's what in my mind I see that old clip of all the records being thrown from the stands, just the chaos.
Yeah.
Were you guys worried at all that Flying Chancla Night might become literally Flying
Flying
Chancla Night?
chocolate night.
No, I think that's what we were hoping for was to have some sort of crazy ending and just throw the chocolates on the field. I think that's what
And
we
here
were. At
come
least
the
Oh my
some of
God.
us some of
Walk-off
us were
home
hoping
run.
for
He's
that.
crossing the plate. He's
Yeah.
getting showered with chanclas. Oh my God, that would put you on Sports Center for sure.
That's what I was hoping for. I think
Right.
the game operations and the maintenance staff, the groundskeepers, I think they were happy that they stayed in the seats.
Right.
But as a PR guy, I was like, this would be amazing if that happened.
So you mentioned Marcos Castanon. When we talked to him, I was amazed on how now out of all the guys that I've talked to, he talked so much more about the science of hitting and the science of picking up where the ball is, the spin, the arc of the ball, and just I was like, it's like a clinic. It just I couldn't believe how much he knew about hitting and how much he could he can like that could be another way he can be a coach. He can kind of talk about that and make it sound like it's not rocket science.
Yeah, no, he's he was fun to watch for sure. Castanon and his my like little player comp to him was Pedroia, with him not being the biggest guy in the world, but he's gonna get the most out of every at bat for sure. And he's also the first person I've ever seen get ejected after drawing a walk. So that was entertaining.
Okay, you got to tell us that story.
Yeah,
What happened?
It was I think it was like a 3-1 count, if I remember right. It was like a 3-1 count, and he thought it was ball four. It wasn't ball four, so they called strike two. He kind of had some words. You could see it from the press box. And then after he draws ball four, as he's going down to take his shin guard off, they rung him.
Right, he said something.
And yeah, and knowing him, he's not he's not shy to speak his mind, and but I think every team needs that. I think I think he fits in that way, and but that cracked us up in the press box. Like how like usually you're getting tossed because of a strikeout or something, but drew a walk and got tossed. So that was interesting.
Okay, so last year was like the most disappointing season in Padres history. And I'm a season ticket holder. We live and die with the Padres here. And so watching that team with all those stars struggle, and kind of play flat the whole season. And then late in the season, these guys came up from AAA, guys like Matthew Batten and Jose Azocar. Chandler Siegel played the one game, but you get these guys that are hungry, and they've, there's this passion, this intensity that comes with that being on the way up rather than being an established player. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that kind of that having that fire in your belly. It sounds like Marcos definitely has that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, and I imagine with him too, and same with Pauley, is I think, and Marsee, is I think they might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder too, being kind of later round draft picks, not really being thought of too highly. And that's the beautiful thing about baseball and with most sports, is that you don't have to be a first round pick to potentially make an impact. And certainly with baseball, like it seems like most of the time, you look back at some of those drafts. That's one of my favorite things to do in the office all the time, is look back at old drafts and just see all the people, you go through the names and it's like, man, that guy didn't do anything. And then you look at guys like Piazza, Mark Burley, guys that were late round draft picks, afterthoughts, and they turn in terrific careers. And I think some of those guys, I think the Padres scouting department and front office have been doing a pretty darn good job at finding some of these guys in the later rounds that, especially out of college, that just seem to get it.
Yeah.
People, they want to know about the superstars. They want to know about, but we like hearing about the people that are the lesser, the people that are grinding away. So like Chandler Siegel, we had a chance to talk to him last offseason, and great conversation we had, and then watching him come up. Brandon Valenzuela. So you had a couple of really good catchers there this year. It sounds like Brandon Valenzuela does a lot of work with the pitchers. It sounds like he doesn't get enough credit for the work that he puts in with the pitching staff.
Yeah, it was a shame that Valley got got banged up a little bit and couldn't finish the season in San Antonio, because yeah, it seemed like by the time that he came up, we had already had some of the Fort Wayne pitchers. So he had already gotten to know those guys. It was just a matter of getting to know our guys. But yeah, really our group of catchers last year, it was kind of a blessing, I feel like, especially to have Luke Montz at the helm of that, being a former catcher himself. And then Michael De La Cruz was a great addition to the Padres organization. He was a great guy to be around, and then put together a pretty solid season as well. Juan Zabala is a perfect, utility catcher. And then the big prospects, Valenzuela, when he's healthy, he's a force, behind the plate and at the plate. And I think once he gets another full season under his belt, I think he'll be solid. And then of course all of them nurturing Ethan. Sorry, got something in my throat there.
So you'll probably be happy to hear that Michael De La Cruz, he was obviously a 1 year minor league free agent last year. He signed again with the Padres this year. And then we also noticed that so Chandler Siegel was released after the season. Kind of wasn't a surprise that they wanted to get him off the 40-man roster one way or the other, but
Mhm.
he was signed to a minor league contract as well. So you'll probably have one or both of those guys back in San Antonio this year.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, obviously we hope, and I hope that they don't come back to San Antonio, in the nicest way possible. But the way the catching situation is with the Padres organization, it is kind of in a weird place right now. And a guy like De La Cruz, I mean, he's kind of one injury away, and if he's hitting again in El Paso, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they need his help at some point, or even if they bring Chandler back up just as a nice backup catcher. Because
Yeah.
I feel like nobody runs a pitching staff, I feel like, as well as he does. That's for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So let's kind of just one more here. Homer Bush.
This was your fault in bringing a kid who wanted to be a broadcaster on the shows. I like to talk.
Dude, that's what
sure.
that's what we're here for. Homer Bush Jr. Came up for, I mean, if you want to talk about a cup of coffee, I think he played 7 games, but he hit like 430. Like the guy, every time he was just, there's another double. God, the kid just hit. How was that kind of fun to see?
Homer was definitely an exciting piece to the mission's puzzle at the end of the season. I think if it wasn't for us going to the postseason, I'm not sure if maybe he even would have came up with us. But with the speed he possessed, I think it was crucial to have him be a part of the team. And sure enough, he homered in that first playoff game in Amarillo. But yeah, that stretch he had, those 8 games, and even to finish it off with a 4-hit game in the season finale was impressive. And then he's a guy that I'm intrigued to see where the Padres start him next year, because I think, on paper you'd imagine our outfield would include Marsee and Corey Howell. There's kind of there's not so much room in the outfield if everything goes that way. So I imagine Homer would benefit a little bit more in spending some time in Fort Wayne, and then get that midseason call up back to San Antonio. But with the Padres, nothing's off the table. But he was certainly fun to watch, and with his pedigree, with his dad playing for as long as he did, I think it shows in him, and the success that some of these college kids are having too. I think kind of goes under the radar too, and you draft a college guy and he can be ready in a year instead of waiting on a high school kid.
Absolutely.
I missed the mute button there. Sorry about that, guys. So the Padres, they have one outfielder on their roster right now, but there's a lot of depth in the outfield in the minors. So one last thing before we let you go, and this happened way before you were a part of the San Antonio Missions, but today was Hall of Fame announcement day. And one-time San Antonio Mission, Adrian Beltre, was elected to the Hall of Fame. So on behalf of the San Antonio Missions, congratulations.
Right.
That's right. That's number 10 for the missions.
Wow.
That's
back in 1998.
That's right. Yeah, we were looking up his stats today too. That he played in 64 games that year and batted 321 or 312. I might have the numbers mixed up, but
321, hit 13 home runs, 21 doubles. I pulled it up right here. 992 OPS, pretty good for a 19-year-old in Double-A.
Yeah, and I called my dad because I saw the notification on my phone as I was driving home, and I called him because I said it's kind of interesting now that my generation of players are starting to get elected to the Hall now with Joe Mauer and Todd Helton and Adrian Beltre. I'm like, I remember watching these guys play.
Yeah, well, I'm over here holding up hope that Fernando Rodney somehow gets picked up again, because I'm 44, about to turn 45. And so I'm there's nobody left in the league that's older than me, and that hurts. But
well, remember the Joe Beimel experience a couple years ago. So it's not
that gave me hope.
Unprecedented.
Well, hey, Jeremy, we really appreciate you coming on. Your debut was fantastic. We hope to have you on in the future as
let me know.
As more players rifle through San Antonio, and we just can't thank you enough.
Yeah, of course. Anytime you guys want me on, I'll be happy to happy to come on, and whenever you guys want to come to San Antonio,